Alright, so it's going to be my review for Creepshow 2 from 1987. I'll try to keep this one concise. These tend to get a little bit long-winded because of the nature of these movies. This is a horror anthology, and if you're not familiar with that, it's a series of short stories, like 3, 4, 5 short individual stories. Usually they're all kind of tied together. Well, I guess they don't have to be tied together necessarily with each other, but they're usually kind of tied together with a wraparound story that starts at the beginning and at the end, and then sometimes in between the stories there's an element that's kind of timed together. So I have a couple other reviews of anthologies very similar to this. Of course, this is Creepshow 2. So the first one, Creepshow, was primarily written by Stephen King and then directed by George Romero. This, similarly, is written by Stephen King, and then the screenplay was helped out with George Romero, but he's not directing this time. This is directed by Michael Gornick, and was the cinematographer for a lot of George Romero's movies. So he's directing this time. And then it's not confusing, but they did a lot of these because then there was also Tales from the Dark Side, the TV show, kind of similar to like Tales from the Crypt. So their version, that was Romero's kind of TV show. He was pretty involved in that, Tales from the Dark Side. And then he was also involved with the Tales from the Dark Side, the movie. And I've reviewed that one as well. So, and then that's another anthology movie like this. But anyways, so getting to this, I liked the first Creepshow quite a bit. It was pretty good, and I saw that in the theater. So Halloween coming around again in October, I like to watch horror movies, so decided to give the second one a shot. This time the wraparound story at the beginning and the end is really bad. It has Tom Savini as like a pretty legendary makeup artist, but apparently he didn't do this makeup, but he's actually the guy wearing it. It's just like really bad. Looks like supposed to be, he's the creep, kind of like the Crypt Keeper. He just looks really weird. Doesn't work. But anyways, it's not important. The wraparound story is really bad in this, but oh well. Get past that real quickly. The first story, there's only 3 stories this time. The first Creepshow had about 5. So this one, the first one's called Old Chief Woodenhead. Main star George Kennedy. I just reviewed a movie with him. I think he won an Oscar for Cool Hand Luke. So in this, he's obviously a lot older. Him and his wife, they own a little shop in a dying town. It's in like Nevada, New Mexico, next to like a Native American reservation. And the town's dying. They were running out of money, and it's really going south the last couple of years. And I don't know. At the beginning, he's just like touching up an old storefront cigar Indian. Like an Indian chief carved out of wood. He's touching them up, and then a guy from the reserve, the Native American reserve, comes, tells him that he can't pay him the money that he owes him, but he can hold on to these precious heirlooms that he has from like the whole tribe, and they're like turquoise and silver, and it looks really expensive. And George Kennedy doesn't want to, but he does because he said it'd be offensive if he didn't take it. And then, anyways, he turns around and there's a guy there, a younger guy from the reserve, just gonna rob him. And it's actually kind of funny. He's played by an actor named Holt McElhaney. I probably don't recognize the name, but he's a somewhat recognizable character actor. He was in Men of Honor, with that diving movie with Cuba Gooding Jr. and Robert De Niro. He's also in Fight Club. He's one of the guys in the Operation Mayhem. So you might recognize him. But anyways, it's funny because he's, I don't know what you call it. He's not doing blackface. He's doing like tan face. He's not a Native American guy, but that's what he's playing. Anyways, he comes, he's gonna rob George Kennedy, and he's just basically busting up his store, and then tells him to give him the jewels. Anyways, this is getting too long already. But after that, the wooden statue out front goes and attacks this guy and his friends that robbed the place with him. It's the first story. I really didn't like this one at all. It was really bad. The acting's not very convincing. It's like a soap opera. Um, the acting the acting's about as wooden as the Native American statue out front. I guess is how I'll say it. It's pretty dorky. It's dumb. It's not scary at all. A couple of the kills, it's kind of funny because how bad it is, and the kills are a little graphic. It's kind of like, oh, that's interesting to have some graphic kills in this really cheesy plot. So, really bad start. Oh well, get past it. A little bit of the filler with the wraparound story again. Again, not good. Second story is called The Raft. This doesn't have any recognizable actors in it. It's a group of 4 like college-age people, 2 guys, 2 girls. They're riding out to a little lake. It's like a pond. It's not very big. And they're just going to go swim out to this little raft dock thing that's floating out in the water. I'm just going to go out there, hang out, smoke some weed. They're smoking in the car when they get there, and as they're swimming out, one of the guys notices that there's like a weird sort of film creature, something like algae, seaweed looking, floating on the water. Kind of starts freaking out. He's like, everybody get on the raft. They get up there, get up there. He's freaking out a little bit. I'm like, what is that? They don't really know what it is. It's floating around them. And it starts attacking them and killing them. And this one was pretty good, actually. It's very similar to what you think of like an 80s slasher. So it has that feel with like the teenagers, the college age people out by the water, similar to like, you know, what you'd see in Friday the 13th. They do that a lot in that movie, out by the water, and the dangers about it. Also, like the thing floating around them, it's kind of like the Blob, has that feel. It doesn't look scary or anything, but actually when it attacks them, it's pretty good. The kills are good, so it's kind of interesting, just because the actual special effects of that that creature is pretty bad. It just looks like a floating trash bag or something. But it works because of I think the way that it's set up. It is familiar, kind of a slasher setup, and the kills offset the awful lookingness of the trash bag. And it's pretty quick. It's short, so it's kind of gets the point across. There's one part that gets really rapey. It was kind of uncomfortable and weird. There's a couple, so out of the 4, there's 2 left at one point, and yeah, the guy just kind of straight up starts groping the other girl, and I don't know, it's really weird. I don't know what the point of that was. I could see it having a distracting effect, but I don't think that's what he was doing. But anyways, decent segment. So I thought that was a good rebound from the first one. Obviously, you couldn't get any worse than Old Chief Woodenhead. And then finally, the last one's called The Hitchhiker, and this stars Lois Childs. She was in one of the James Bond movies in not the 70s. It was Moonraker. Yes, Moonraker in '79. She was Holly Goodhead. So classic James Bond Bond woman. But anyway, it starts out she's having an affair with her lover. She's gonna leave. She needs to get home before her husband does. And as she's driving, I figure out what she's doing. She's smoking a cigarette or something. She gets distracted, looks up, accidentally hits a hitchhiker, runs him over, looks back, thinks about it for a second, and then drives away. Hit and run, classic hit and run. Pretty shitty of her. But then as she's going, she starts seeing things a little bit. She keeps seeing the hitchhiker pop up, and it's pretty good. He's like jumps up on the trunk. He's trying to crawl in. Pops up on the hood. He's on the roof trying to get in the sunroof, and that's the kind of the arc of the story. no matter what she does, she can't get away from this hitchhiker. But as she's going, he gets more and more beat up and more disgusting and grotesque. The effects in this one are pretty good. This has the best makeup, practical visual effects for seeing this hitchhiker get more and more decomposed, or whatever you want to call it, more torn up. So it's pretty good. Has a very what the Edgar Allan Poe story, The Telltale Heart, has that, with a really guilty conscience. Much more sped up in this case. It's happens, she hits him, and then starts getting really paranoid about it very soon. Also, I had a feel of when first happens, I Know What You Did Last Summer. Same kind of premise, but of course that's a whole movie, and this is a very short segment in this anthology. I guess I was gonna say the the Gremlin segment of the Twilight Zone movie with John Lithgow, but that's a little different. He's imagining that little gremlin out on the wing. But anyways, so that's not too familiar or too similar. I thought it was really good. It's quite graphic and gory, and it's simple but effective. It's a very simple premise, but they pull it off pretty well. So I thought this was a good segment too. So, like I said, trying to keep it short. That's still already long. Again, so after this one, another wraparound story at the end. Really weird. It goes into this animation. So it's actually like an actor, a little kid actor at the beginning, and then at the end it's animated, probably just because of what they're doing at the end. They couldn't do it practically. Really bad animation too, though. So the wraparound story is awful on this. The first segment, Old Chief Woodenhead, is bad. You can just skip that first one if you really want to. And then the other two are good. I think they're worth checking out. The Raft is a very nostalgic 80s slasher feel to it, but just really quick and short. And The Hitchhiker is good too. I think it's pretty well done. So the 2 out of 3 are worth making this a watch. So I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. If you're looking for another horror anthology movie to see, or obviously if you're just seeing one for the first time, watch Creepshow 1, the first one, and then go to this one. Sure, it's a good follow-up, and then Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, is decent as well. I actually just looked at my other reviews, and I've given them all ratings of 3 out of 5. So the first Creepshow, Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, and this one, Creepshow 2, they're all pretty even. So yeah, all 3 out of 5s. I know the first Creepshow had a lot more segments, and they didn't all work as well. But again, they evened out. You kind of get that with any kind of anthology movie. I didn't look at my ratings for the Twilight Zone movie. I remember not liking it as much because it has a couple good ones and then a couple bad segments. But anyways, still rambling on. So yeah, a good movie to watch in October if you want to do like a double feature. Watch a bunch of segments. You could watch the Creepshow series, watch the first one and this one. You'd have a lot of segments there to choose from. So yeah, I'd check it out. 3 out of 5.